What is happening, good people? Welcome to Sports Cards Anonymous, a channel where we have conversations about cards. And this is the slow burn. I have a lot to say in this video. I've been off for a little bit, and there's just so much going on with the hobby right now. The market is just absolutely shredding. I mean, it is absolutely on fire. It, to me, feels like the hottest market since, peak COVID. I mean, this market is just absolutely running. And this market's a lot different than the COVID market. And it gives me probably the most optimism I've ever had in the sports card market. I say it all the time. I've been collecting since 1999. I would consider 1995 to like 2017 the dead era of sports cards. There was almost no interest. I grew up in that. So I always have this kind of cynical view of how sports cards are going to be viewed and how the values are going to move over time. But I think we are in the middle of a re-rating of the sports card market. I think there is significant, real, long-term interest in sports cards. You could say as a alternative asset. I don't really care for that term. I don't even care for that idea. I don't think it has much to do with that they're considered an alternative asset, and it has more to do with I think they're considered art. So I want to unpack some of this. I want to start with a video that Jeff Wilson put out a couple days ago about TCCs, which an article that Josh Luber had put out talking about true collector cards. Now, they've got some definitions about what that is. It's valuable, it's rare, it's scarce, it's all these things. To me, it's in line with my term, the stunning standard. They're talking about cards that meet the stunning standard. These are beautiful, wonderful cards that just elicit happy emotion from whoever owns them, beyond who owns them, people who view them and who see them, people who get to observe them. And these cards, they have a lot of depth. Cards that meet the stunning standard, they're not a one-trick pony, right? It's not just a nice image. It's a nice image plus a nice auto plus nice etching plus a game used patch, right? There's a lot of depth to these pieces and a lot to be appreciated about them. Since I've come back to YouTube for about 2 months now, my whole spiel has been we need to focus on the stunning standard cards and we need to build a museum, right? We are building our own museums. And now, between Luber and Jeff now picking it up and talking about it, this idea is obviously getting a lot of traction publicly. But I think behind the scenes, I think collectors themselves have been doing this, right? When you look at the COVID market and what drove sales and price, it was flippers. The COVID market was about flipping. I believe the current market is much healthier, and I believe that instead of being about flipping, I think the current market is about vaulting. It's about buying stunning pieces that you can put in a vault, set aside, enjoy when you want, and over time, they're going to be appreciated because you're buying truly unique pieces that other people can appreciate beyond just yourself. These are not market commodities. These are unique pieces of art that has a very limited supply. And I don't want you to think, and we're going to dive in this a little bit, I'm not talking about 5-figure cards. Jeff in his video, he's like, I'm going to show off some cards, maybe lower dollar cards. Shows off the, I don't even know, $20,000, $50,000 Steph Curry auto, a black label, black refractor LeBron rookie, a LeBron 10 chrome refractor, and then his low dollar card is a Kaboom 1-of-1 Tim Tebow, which, yeah, relative, it's low, but I'm sure, that was over $1,000, I'd have to guess. I mean, there's nothing really low there, in my opinion. There's a lot of big stuff. But I do think there's opportunity to pick up, wonderful cards, but we have to look for those differentiators, right? If you're just buying a standard refractor, right, that's not special enough. You're not differentiating your collection by a standard refractor, a standard rookie card, and so on. And I think as we get back to the idea of a re-rating, what's happening is the hobby is realizing that true scarcity matters. True scarcity of a card is drives long-term value and investment. Now, of course, you always have to couple that with demand, and that's where I think we talk about the stunning standard. Truly scarce cards that have, various aspects that make them intriguing and interesting. And you put all this together and you end up with, the true collector cards, right? That Luber and Jeff were talking about. Start off strong out of the gate. Grab me some coffee. I'm really on this topic right now. I think it's really interesting because I do think the market's being re-rated to the benefit of everybody here. I think this is a very positive and good re-rating. And a lot of it's going to do about this art stuff. Let me check some of my notes here. True scarcity, stunning standard, big sales. I want to talk about big sales. We have had a slew of big sales. Of course, most recently, not sports cards, but still, the Illustrator Pokemon Pikachu by Logan Paul or whatever sold it for, I don't know, 15 million, whatever the crazy number was. That is driving attention to the market, but I have never been a big believer in these massive, unique sales are driving the market upward. I've never really been a big believer in that because when I see them, I just kind of roll my eyes and think, whatever, I don't care. It's so out of this world to me. It's so away from what I'm doing. It just has no impact on me. But the cards that I've really been big on the last 3 to 6 months have been game-used patch autos. And I'm going to say something here that there's going to be some disagreement. There's people going to look at me and think I'm crazy. From about 2004 to 2020, game-used patch autos are the king of that era. Game-used patch autos will be the PMGs of that 15 to 16-year period. People are trying to figure out what's going to be the next PMG, the next, essential credentials, and they're looking at kabooms and all this other stuff, and they've got it wrong. Parallels, I was around this whole time. No one cared about inserts or parallels that much all through this time. The true king hits were always the game-used patches with on-card autos. And I think that's going to hold true in the future. I think we went through this transition phase where a lot of the patches were napkin patches, not even associated with players, and we took the game-used on-card auto stuff for granted. We didn't realize how special it was. But I think in the end, this is going to be the stuff that stands above everything else from this era. And more than that, it's not just enough to have the game used on card auto. You still need to find differentiators. And this is what I love about game used. The patch itself, as well as the auto, of course, are both differentiators. You can have a napkin patch, or you can have a beautiful, stunning 4-color patch, right? You could have a great patch with some nameplate in there, with some great details of the logo. Or again, you could just have a napkin patch. And so when you look at a total population of game-used patch on-card autos for maybe Hakeem Olajuwon, maybe the total print run is 2,000 or 2,500 cards, right? Maybe, I don't know, whatever. But if you're looking for nice patches inside of that, you are moving yourself way up that ladder into the top, 100 or 500 even. Or, depending on how nice the patch is, we're starting talking about 100 or 50, I might have said 100 and 500. I meant 150. The patch is a differentiator. And the auto, I've been talking about this in a few videos. I am hunting inscription autos. The auto itself is a differentiator. The nicer the auto, obviously, the nicer the card. But if you can chase inscription autos, well, now you're just a whole nother level up because those are so rare. We really don't see those. So I really think from this era, that's what's going to stick. Now, of course, you may disagree, and you're welcome to have your own opinion. I mean, it's just what I think. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, and as part of this conversation, I've been chasing this stuff for about 4 or 5 months, but I've been a really strong buyer of this stuff for maybe 2 months now. I had some really strong sales. I opened up my pocketbook a little bit, and I was able to get some stuff. And I recently showed off my 3-color on-card game used patch auto of Shaquille O'Neal. And it was shocking to me, the price. The price was $680 for an immaculate 2014. Beautiful card. You'll see it in eBay sales history if you search. And I talked to my buddy X-Trip, good buddy of mine, many years now, via Discord. And I said, he likes basketball cards like this too. And I said, I got this card and I think it's a steal at this price. And if you look back 3, 4, 5 months prior, it was half the price, man. It was $350, $400. And I'm just kicking myself. I feel like an absolute fool for not buying this stuff for the last 2 years. It's obviously awesome, and I can't believe it was going for that price and I didn't know about it. And I want to talk about that a little bit more too, but put a pin in that for a second. And he said something so astute. I got to give him his flowers because it's rare that he says something astute. So, good job, X. He said he said something to the effect of, they were never that cheap in my mind. I never knew they got that cheap. They were always more expensive than that. Now I'm butchering it. Sorry, X. But it really stuck with me because, when I look at cards like that, these wonderful game used patch autos, I always think the sticker is going to be $1,200, $1,500, something crazy. But for years, they've been sitting there at $200, $300, $400, just right under our noses, and we weren't making a move, me and him. And now I really regret it. And so now I've really been hunting that stuff. Again, I had some money, so I start chasing this stuff. And this stuff is flying. I mean, this stuff is being vaulted. I can see from the eBay interactions alone, this stuff is being vaulted. When I started this, there was a slew of Shaq patch autos available on eBay just 3 months ago. Today, right now, if you search immaculate, flawless, and national treasures patch autos for Shaquille O'Neal, there are 12 listed on eBay. 2 of them are auction, and out of the 12, only 2 are with the Lakers, which of course mine is a Lakers patch. One of them is a flawless, just the most stunning card you've ever seen for Shaq. 2 great patches, like numbered to 3 or 5 is Emerald, I think. That's listed for $23,000. And then there's probably the exact opposite end. There's a National Treasures napkin patch almost of Shaq, very yellow. It's not a great card, listed for $600. Now, what's interesting about the Shaq that I bought, there were 2 of those immaculates listed. And I had been, for a couple weeks, trying to work a deal on either one of them. These people, the sellers weren't moving. They weren't budging. And finally, I ponied up for the raw one with 3 colors. There was an SGC 910, with 2 colors with the on-card auto. I think much, much worse card, in my opinion. The day after I bought the raw one, the SGC sold. There's people watching this stuff. They don't want to pay the prices of the current market because the prices look unreasonable compared to comps over the last 6 months. But this market is so hot that you have to pay that. Because if you won't, somebody else will pull the trigger. And a lot of times, like during COVID, you say this is a little bit of a fever pitch. Maybe you want to take a step back and reassess. And that's how I felt during COVID. But I'll be honest with you right now, I feel the opposite. I feel like I need to lean in and I need to buy more and more. This light is. Yeah. I need to buy more and more. I don't know, man. I got new neighbors over there. I don't know what's going on. And figure out. Broke my concentration there a little bit, yeah. I need to buy more and more and keep vaulting and putting this stuff away. Because, like I said, I keep seeing this stuff is not being, it's not being relisted. It's not going back up, right? Nobody's reselling this stuff. And that goes back to the point of, I think these people buying it, they're not flipping it, they're vaulting it. Woo, that broke my concentration good, man. Wasn't ready for that. That house has been an Airbnb for a while, and I think somebody's finally renting it. And yeah, anyway, so they turning some lights on. I might have to figure out a new place to go. And I want to talk about, two more things. I talked about I was chasing these cards for a while on eBay. And I had saved up some money, and there was all these cards on eBay that I was looking at. And I didn't pull any triggers because I've been going to shows a lot. I have a goal to go to a show once a month now. I've been doing it for about 6 months, and I love it. I cannot recommend it enough. You need to go to shows. eBay is awesome for being surgical and finding the exact right card that you're looking for. But eBay is really bad at perusing because it sucks you in and will keep you for hours and hours and hours. And you don't want to do that. So what's been good for me is I go to shows, and there's a wide variety of things to see, and it's just really, it has been a great addition to my hobby life, going to a show once a month. So I was going to these shows, and then I was stumbling into these patch autos, and I was looking at stuff on eBay, and I was like, man, these are so high compared to comps. I'm going to a big show in Houston at the end of January, and I've been going to that show for 30 years. They always have nice patch autos. So I said, let me go there, and let me buy there instead of at eBay. I went to the show. There's no patch autos. That's what my video, car dealers are struggling. The inventory's gone. All this stuff is being bought. When it's not at that show, I know, oh man, it's really disappearing. That night I went home and bought the shack that night. So yeah, that stuff, it is drying up. Shows, I want to talk about card is art. Card is art. It's a big thing because when we talk about the rating of the market, it's about card is art. But okay, I got one more thing before card is art. The allergy is still kicking my butt. I talked earlier about the Logan Paul sale, the Pokemon Illustrator. Going back to big sales and continuing with patch autos, of course, I don't think this was a patch auto. The Logo Man, the dual Logo Man that Kevin O'Leary and Shine bought. As I don't know, is it LeBron and Kobe or something? I forget who's on it. I didn't think about it then, and I'm only putting the pieces together now. But I do wonder if that card purchase sparked the interest in the game used stuff. Is that Kevin O'Leary, a big money guy, coming in and saying, this is the unique stuff of that era. This is what we need to be buying in. And did that influence other people to move into that? I don't know. I just kind of was putting this together on the back end, thinking through it. I think it's interesting. Last thing I want to say, why I think the re-rating is happening, why I think it's real, and why I think it's going to stay. We've been seeing a re-rating in Pokemon for many years now. And sports cards are a little bit laggard, but the confidence and conviction in the Pokemon investment strategy right now is so high, we're seeing it across all collectibles. Now, the question is it going to stay for all collectibles? Certainly for the ones that matter to us, right? Sports cards. Or will it wane? And it made me think about art. I think about art often because it's been a way of collecting for, almost the existence of humanity, certainly of modernity, right? For, 1,500, 2,000, 6,000 years, humans have been collecting art. And what it has dawned on me, my generation, we do not see wall prints as art. We don't see stuff on the wall as art. Not necessarily, right? It's not our flavor. I think we see collectibles as art. They're unique. They're fun to look at. They're rare. We have a lot of known entities about it. They're about IPs that we like. I think the re-rating in Pokemon is the acceptance of my generation that this is our art. This is what we like. And I think that's carrying in to sports cards. And I think it's here to stay. I think that's a real thing. And to me, it makes sense, right? What is art? It's something you put on the wall and you look at and you appreciate and other people can appreciate. And that's exactly what we're talking about here with stunning standard and museum quality, right? We're trying to buy stunning pieces that we can, show people and they can enjoy, and it can tell a story that we want it to tell. Or it can be, and that story can be part of your life, the nostalgia fact, whatever it is, but it ties to us. So it has meaning to us, it's nostalgic to us, and also it's wonderful to look at. So to me, my generation is calling this art, and we're calling it our chosen art. This is our number one art. Forget, NFTs, forget wall paintings, forget oil paintings, forget sculptures. Man, give me collectibles. Man, this is the best form of art there is. Video games, books, Pokemon cards, sports cards, Dragon Ball Z cards. I think this re-rating is real. I think it's here to stay. I don't think it's going away. I've never bought into sports cards as an alternative investment. I've never bought into it as an investment class. I've always bought into it as more like art. And I think it is finally being appreciated as such. And I think it's driven firstly because Pokemon is doing it. And now I think everyone's catching on around it. That true scarcity, true rarity. These cards are wonderful. They're nice to look at. They're great to have in your collection. And as part of that, they're just a great piece of art. And so people hang on to them a little bit longer. They enjoy them a little bit longer. And that's how we're getting away from flipping and into vaulting, as people are focused on buying the cards they want. And the last thing I'll say, I talked about the dead era, 95, 99, whatever, to 2017. That was the dead era. 2018, the market started to heat up. In 2018, the market started to heat up, and then COVID hit, and it went ballistic. Now, obviously, that was a bubble for a variety of reasons, right? And then it fell off, but the floor was still much higher than it was in 2018 and 2019. And then we've had some ups and downs since then, and now we are shooting up. I think it's possible that the collectors who entered during COVID, the people who entered during COVID, are becoming more mature collectors, and they are finally picking out and piecing out what they want. And I also think somehow, some way, with Topps taking over Panini, over the licenses, there has become great clarity in the cards that are available. The fact that Flawless, National Treasures, and Immaculate are done being made with licenses, okay, well, everything that's been made for the last 15 years now has a cap to what's available. And so we now know, hey, this is it. And I think some of that is adding to the scarcity. We know it's done now. And now, people are buying it. And as every piece goes off, there's not another, 150 of that player coming in next year. It's done. That's it. And so we don't get that replenishment. And as people appreciate these cards more and prices go up, they continue to get vaulted and put away. And you see them less and less. And that price is just going to keep going up. So I think the market's in a great spot. I think we're going through a re-rating. I think it's real. I think it's here to stay. And I don't know where it ends. I've never been this bullish on the sports card hobby market. I've never been particularly bullish on the market in general. But I am right now. I think we're at a great time right now. I think we're still going to be riding upwards for a little bit. And I would challenge you to find the cards that you think meet your stunning standard. Right? I talked about this in my stunning standard video. It doesn't have to be $1,000 card. You need to find rare, and you need to find cards that have attributes you like. So a way that you can do this, go through your collection, pick out your 5 favorite cards. What do they have in common? These are 5 cards that every time you look at them, you smile, you have some enjoyment, you feel that happiness in you, What do they have in common? Maybe they're all patch autos, maybe they're all the same player, the same team, some nostalgic trait, whatever it is. Find out what they have in common. And then really lean into that and say, okay, that attribute taken to the most elevated level in the hobby, what does it look like? And now start looking for cards in that realm. And that's how you elevate your collection. What you don't want to do, and what so many of us do, is we just buy. And I've said this before, but a lot of times I think people in the hobby are more interested in the deal than they are the card. And they even talk about, Jeff even talked about this a little bit, where, people like the chase. I think Josh Luber said that in his article. People like the chase. I agree 100%. They enjoy the chase more than the kill. And that's exactly what I mean by when I say people like the deal more than they like the card. They like the wheeling and dealing. And so if you feel that way, what's going to happen is you're not taking your collection seriously. You're just looking for deals. And your collection, instead of being a high quality museum collection, is just going to be a collection of good deals. What does that mean? Doesn't mean anything. If you want to build a good collection, you have to be serious about collecting and not just about buying at a good price. And if you're going to be serious about collecting, it means you got to sit down, figure out what you want your collection to look like. What is your scope of collection? What is the story that your collection is telling? And figure out what type of cards it is that you like that fit inside of your scope of collection, and then go buy the most elevated form of those. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. It doesn't mean go buy Steph Curry and LeBron. I think that's kind of a waste of your time unless that's really your guy, really your guy. You know, you should really challenge yourself because, look, $5,000 into a Steph Curry card won't get you a very nice Steph Curry card. But $5,000 on a Jeff Bagwell or a John Elway or, name your player, LaDainian Tomlinson, you're talking about a number 1, number 2, number 3 overall card of that player, right? And if you lower down that limit, you say $500. Well, $500 for a Steph Curry card gets you a card no one will care about. You'll be like, oh, it's a $500 Steph Curry card, but no one will actually care, right? It's not going to turn any heads. But I can promise you a $500 Jeff Bagwell card will turn heads because it is a stunning card. The market doesn't appreciate it as much because it's Jeff Bagwell and not Steph Curry. But he's still a Hall of Famer, still an Astro. There's still a strong market for Jeff Bagwell. And if these cards do well as they continue to be consolidated and vaulted instead of flipped, these are the type of cards that are going to continue to rise in price. Whether they do or not, again, it's weird for me to even say that out loud because I've always been so bearish on the market. But, man, it's roaring right now. And, again, will it continue or not? I don't know. But what I do know is if you're trying to build a nice collection, you do want to focus on the stunning standard, on true collector cards. And that still is focusing on very high elevated cards and not the common stuff that transacts daily or weekly or monthly. You do want to look for the rare stuff. That doesn't mean it has to be a 1-of-1 card or a 1-of-10. Like I've been saying, it's just a really nice patch auto. You don't see that patch very often, right? That is a differentiator. It's a nice inscription. That's a differentiator. Of course, with your 90s players and stuff, you got the parallels and blah, blah. I get it, the parallels. But there's plenty of other stuff besides 90s parallels, which everyone is hooked on, that meets the stunning standard. And it's just a matter of you doing the due diligence of understanding what it is you like to collect. And then furthering that and thinking through, okay, I like to collect X. What is the most elevated form of X? And how do I fit that into my collection? How do I put that into my collection, right? Whether it's patch autos or parallels or unique inserts or unique photography, whatever it is. It can be anything. I don't want to get so locked in a box that it has to be this exact type of card. That's not what I'm saying. But you do have to find the most elevated type. All right, I'm beating a dead horse. This horse has been beat to death. That's pretty much the video, some housekeeping stuff. Since I've relaunched the channel, a big part of the channel now is this is a record of my hobby experience. For postmortem, for postmortem, or whatever, right? I wanted this record out there for my kids, for whoever's interested. And so a big part of this is every month, at the end of every month, I'm going to do a pickup video. I'm going to show the cards that I've added to my collection. It's not every card I bought. It's the cards I added to my collection this month. I had probably my best month as a collector ever in the month of February. And so I'm going to do 2 videos. One is going to be basketball, Rockets, and one is going to be baseball, Astros. So keep an eye out for those. They're going to be at the end of the month. And yeah, accessible rarity. I put that in the title and never used it. Accessible rarity. Accessible rarity is exactly what I'm talking about. It's cards that you think are awesome. You think are wonderful. You got this little tingling in your stomach every time you see them. And you could buy it, but you kind of skip on it because it's towards the top of your range, but still accessible. And you skip it. That's a mistake. I'm 35 now. I just turned 35. That's middle age. It's middle age. I've been working professionally for some time now. And I mentor the young folks, the college, they come out of college and I help them out. I like doing it. I like helping people. And I like helping the young folks out. If they're serious about their career, I like, trying to help them where I can. And when I was in my early 20s, this thought came to me, and it has stuck with me ever since then. My superpower is that I know I don't have a superpower. And I tell that to them. And what I mean by this is that I'm an average dude. I'm average in a lot of ways. I may think a little bit different than people, or I may see the world a little bit different here or there, but in general, I'm average. Average height, average weight, average everything. Average dude. And when I hear news, my reaction in general is average. When a policy changes at work, my reaction in general is average. And so I've always taken that and meant that if I feel a certain way about something, there's probably a pretty decent chance a lot of people feel that way. And that has served me well in cards. When I think about stuff that I like, and I'm like, well, it's cheap, and I like it, so let me just buy it. Over time, that stuff does really well. Pokemon's the best example. I probably have, I have a massive Pokemon collection because I was a little bit ahead of the curve. I'm never way ahead of the curve. I'm always only a little bit ahead of the curve. But I say this to say, when you're looking at something and you think, hey, this is what he was talking about, like the elevated form of what I like, and you look at it and maybe it's not that popular, or it's a little out of style right now, but if you really dig it, if you really like it, you buy it, and then maybe you have a couple, and after 6 months you still like that stuff, you're really onto something. That's something you really like. More likely than not, there's a lot of other people out there that agree with you that they like that stuff, man. And so I say that to say, don't be afraid to lean in to how you feel about cards. Don't feel obligated to follow the trend. You're never going to be happy with that. Because if you're following the trend, you're going to do all the things we're talking about not to do. You're going to chase the deals. You're not going to be buying cards that you really want for your collection. And at the end of the day, what you will have done is you will have amassed a horde of cards instead of curating a collection. And that is probably my worst fear with collecting. It is probably the worst thing that you can do, because what it means is, as I said before, you, instead of building your museum, you missed a target and built your own mausoleum. You buried yourself in cardboard and threw away money on stuff that you didn't actually want because you didn't do the due diligence to sit down and think about what it is you want. It doesn't take a lot of effort. It may take a couple months. You don't buy some stuff, you really sit down and think. Yeah, I get it. It takes some effort. But in the end, you're going to be rewarded with a much better collection that you're happy about, instead of a horde of stuff that you're burdened by, right? Build your museum, not your mausoleum. Damn, I'm spitting fire tonight. Oh my goodness, this was a good video. I hope y'all enjoyed this as much as I did. Cheers.